Okay, one of the things on our list was to drop the tank and check it out. Frank has been reporting that his engine starts to die down, like run out of power, and then he'll replace the fuel filter up top, and then it goes good for a while. So this is what we found. This is kind of typical of 50-year-old tanks. That sock kind of came apart. I think it was intact when I was starting to pull it out, but I rubbed it against the edge of the opening there. So anyway, we are going to check this out and see how this works, see if it's salvageable, mostly because there's no direct replacement that I know of. So the other thing we want to do is look inside, see if there's any evidence of stuff in there. And let's see if I can get this. Yeah. It's looking pretty bad in there. Yeah. So yep, that's not looking too good. So we'll have to see if that's loose material that can come off of there. See if I can get that focused in there. Yeah, that's not looking too good. All right, so we're gonna brush this off. We're gonna clean up the outside of the tank as much as we can. We're gonna lay this out in the sun and see if we can get all the gasoline vapors out of it before we start rocking and rolling. And that's kind of what one of the things I want to do is put some rocks in there and rock it back and forth and see if I can get this thing cleaned out. So that's the plan. Okay, we've finished up cleaning the fuel tank. We put a bunch of rocks in there and then put about a half a can of brake clean in the fuel tank and shook the heck out of it until our back couldn't take it anymore. Dumped the brake clean out of there, and this was also where we dumped the last of the fuel that was in the tank, and you can see that there's just a lot of sediment. There's a whole bunch in the bottom of this container too. So we did that about 3 or 4 times, twice with brake clean and twice with a pint of rubbing alcohol. And then we started working it over with the regular water from the hose, and a lot of shaking, a lot of agitating, and then a lot of shaking the rocks out. The last dozen or so rocks, I had to pull those out with the grabbers. They were a little bit harder to pull out, but anyway, we got that done. We still are going to be checking to see if we can get a radiator petcock installed, but a lot of these places, they do not want to contaminate their solution if they're going to clean it out, so I wanted to make sure it was cleaned out as much as possible. Anyway, we're off to the fuel sending unit. We went ahead and took this fuel sending unit, cleaned it up a little bit. As you can see, the sock is gone. It used to be this fabric stuff, act like a little filter, but that's gone for good. I went ahead and ohmed it out, and there's about 2 ohms in the one position, and then it goes to infinite. So there's something going on inside here, and that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tab off and this tab off and open that up and see what's going on in there. So let's see how that turns out. Okay, I don't know if this is going to turn out, but I wanted to give this a shot. In here, you can see, grab a pencil. You can see the wiper arm, where it wipes as the contacts go up and down. And this piece is the one that has the contact, and that contact is right there. So that contact rubs back and forth as it goes along. So I'm going to look at this a little bit closer and see if I can at least clean this up a little bit. This would be kind of difficult to rewire. I think there's like a winding that goes along there, but I'm gonna look at this a little closer and be right back. Okay, we've got this on like 3.5 times magnification, so it's gonna be a little bit shaky because I can't hold the camera still very well. I want to get a close-up of this wire wound area where that contact rides up and down on it. You can see there's some crud in there, and what I've done is I've started to clean out that center section, and I'm going to do that a little bit more. First I tried with a pencil that had sandpaper wrapped around. That didn't work. And what did work, seems to be working, is this bristle brush. brass bristle, this brush. So the name of the game is obviously go in the direction of these wire wound units, and I'm going to clean those up and then make sure that the contacts are doing well. The other thing I noticed here was, let me go out of this magnification, is this brass float seems to be continuously leaking. So I think what's happened there is that it's full of fuel and there's a hole in that. So we're gonna be looking at that later. Doesn't do much good if the mechanism is working, if the float just keeps sinking to the bottom. So anyway, we're gonna take a look at that and see what we can do. And we'll be back in just a couple of shakes. Okay, we've got it on 3 times magnification again, so I'm going to try to hold this as steady as I can. You got to excuse me if it's a little bit shaky. I wanted to show you how it looked after I cleaned it up. So, let's see, where am I at here? Turns out the wiper, that contact, doesn't go down below this. It just travels between here and up here, and it's got I got it marked on the back side, and I'll show you that. But it does not, the wiper doesn't get contacted below this point. So if you're going to try to clean this up, this is the area that you want to concentrate on. I did end up using that sandpaper on the end of that pencil. That worked out pretty good because I was brushing, and as I continued to brush, I was going in and then back, in and then back. Well, what happened is this end piece here came loose, and it's just held in there with a small little notch. And so I just got to, I I had to hold it with one finger and then brush or use the pencil with the sandpaper on it with, on the other end. So that was 150. Probably should have gone with like 220. But the main thing I did not want to do was to brush it in this direction back and forth. I wanted to just go up or down, up or down. Once that came loose, then I held it in place while I was brushing it. So I'm going to put this together now, and we're going to check to see what kind of ohms we have, what kind of resistance. There's, let's go to a one-time magnification. Obviously this thing has got fuel in it, so that's another reason why it wasn't working. I imagine that it's just rubbed a spot along this bail, so I'm going to pull that float off and see if I can empty it out and maybe epoxy it and put it back on there. So that is the story on that. Let's see, this is the wiper. Let's see if I can hold this steady. This is the other part of the contact. Let's see if we can get in on that. Yeah, man, it's not very clear. Let's try one time. Anyway. There we go. So that contact is what rubs up against that wound piece, and as the float goes up and down, that goes back and forth. I noticed that there was pretty good copper contact. I mean, there was a lot of exposed copper, so I think it was rubbing on there. But I think that some of the gas additives or whatever that built up on this section was preventing a good contact. So I didn't see anything mechanically broken. The rest of this stuff we'll take a look at inside. Okay, let's see if we can get the sun on there in the right angle. You can see the contact arm with the green piece that has the copper button on it, and then you can also see the hole that I have to put the end of that shaft in order to close this thing up the right way. But I think this is going to be the right way to start it. In other words, have that shaft all the way against the flat piece of the housing, and then get that contact button inside there as much as possible so that it doesn't catch on that wire wound piece, and then adjust this so that that shaft goes through that hole. So I don't have enough fingers to hold the phone and try to do this and film at the same time, and so we're just gonna put it together and hope for the best. All right, we've got this sender put back together, and it turns out that what was the easiest is to have the float at about the mid-level position, and that allowed me to insert that wiper onto that wire wound piece in the greatest, with the greatest assurance that there would be no tweaking of that contact. So I squeezed all of these with compound leverage pliers. Those work really good, and it seems to be nice and tight. One thing that I think is essential is that you don't tweak this too much, and you got to make sure that that doesn't break or bend. I mean, it's just so much delicate parts here. It's just crazy. And I didn't take any of this apart. The contacts were actually good. They were solid according to the ohm meter. Same thing here. I've seen a lot of these that are a lot worse than this. I'm actually surprised that this is not totally corroded away. I don't think that these things were really designed to last over 50 years, but maybe with a little help, this one will continue to give good service. But anyway, we've got the ohm meter hooked up. Yeah. Okay, so we're all the way at the end, and it's reading 7 ohms now. It was reading, let me give it a little bit of a lift. Let's see if I can. You can see what I'm doing here. So just a little bit of a tweak on it is making a big difference in the readings. So now we're up to 140. I pushed it all the way to the empty, about 20 ohms. Before it was settling down to about 30 ohms. I'm gonna just try to get both in here so you can see what I'm doing. I believe the base reading is supposed to be 30 ohms. And that's about a third of the way up. It's about half of the way up. Oops. You see it goes open some of the times. All right, so these readings are kind of all over the map. There, I'm pushing it all the way to the top and holding it there, trying to hold it still. So we'll see how this reacts once it's in there. It is giving me a variable reading when I go from empty to full, so that's reassuring. And of course, the way I'm checking this is I have one lead of the ohm meter attached to the output and another one to the ground wire. So that's it. We are going to work on that float next. Stay tuned. Okay, so we cleaned up this float, and sure enough, there's a couple of small holes there. And there's also some even smaller holes right in there. You can see that. So we're going to try to solder this up. Sure wish I had another one of these, but anyway, let's see how it goes.